We got to talk about the WWE Smackdown in Vancouver on January the 5th. This is when it was broadcast. And already we're seeing changes. In the new ownership has promised all these changes, and they've re-racked the announcers. We're down to two-man boos.
Was that the final straw for Kevin Dunn? When they went back to two-man booths?
Well, because, he wanted Kevin Dunn wanted Michael Cole to do play-by-play on his morning shower. He wanted him on every show. So, and oh goddamn, I don't know what his name was, but the executive over there at the big umbrella group, old TKO, that said, we've dealt with producers that treat every camera like a baby. Maybe they said we're gonna, and it's a positive move. There shouldn't be three people in a goddamn announce booth on wrestling unless it's a guest color guy that's also some type of talent, and then not all the time. But nevertheless, I find it amusing that we've got Tony Khan. Think about this now that from his own lips we know these things. That he was sitting writing AEW Dynamite, maybe not AEW, but Dynamite, Monday Nitro, Wednesday Dynamite, in the back room of the fucking classroom when he was 14 years old in school. And when he actually, at almost 40, was given an unlimited amount of money by his father to do this, he didn't think, it felt good when I was 14, but let's revisit this. Let's maybe update some of these ideas or see if anything needs a once-over. No, at 14, he got it perfect, right? And these people come in and go, you know what? Maybe it's not. So I'm not talking about them changing the wrestling, and hopefully they won't do that in any material degree. But maybe this is not the only way to present this on television. And the two-man booth is a positive, and something we didn't notice that I heard about afterwards because I didn't want to sit through 3 hours of Raw to review The Rock, was that they had the two announcers start in the ring addressing the people rather than just the miscellaneous, goddamn little on camera in an entrance and, whatever.
I missed that too. I read about it.
But the point is, I said last week on one of these programs, or sometime since we've been back from this break, wouldn't it be amazing if they would change it up a little bit where there's announcers in the ring running the show and it's presented more like a sports television program and so somebody's at least holding the microphone. Some of this shit actually may be scheduled to happen. So when the surprise shit happens, it's even more of a surprise because it wasn't scheduled to fucking happen. You can't do that deal at all anymore. Remember, we don't have this on the format. This isn't scheduled because nothing is. It just fucking happens, right? So and maybe the small changes, because there's some more shit in this program, SmackDown, that's going to just fucking happen. But I'm just saying maybe they're willing to take a look at this and maybe make it a little more like the UFC presentation, which is more sports-like in its feel or flavor or whatever. What do you think?
It's interesting that these changes are happening. They're apparent if you watch the show. I missed the first one, you did too. But there's other things, a two-man booth. Coincidentally, Kevin Dunn, it's like, by the way, he decided to leave today. Today's his last day. Just decided, spur of the moment. Today's the day. I'm out of here. Like Vince. 77, had a great life. Time to retire.
Yeah, for 6 months. But anyway, so the SmackDown program, they obviously recapped Rock on Raw. And he was responsible for umpty 100 million social media, whatever the fucks. And then they go to the back where the limo is pulling up and the door opens and out comes Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. And the intrepid lady interviewer, I can't remember her name, comes up to ask him a question. And at least on the feed I watched, they didn't feed her audio somewhere they should have, and you couldn't hear what the question was. And then Roman and Paul, not knowing that, because I'm sure it was a pre-tape, they were supposed to roll their eyes at her and just blow her off. So we didn't hear the question, and then they rolled their eyes and walked off. Is that what you got?
Pretty much.
Well, there we go. And
Kayla Braxton, I believe is her name.
Well, okay, but who now? Sheila?
Kayla.
No, Sheila Braxton.
Kayla Braxton.
Oh, I like Sheila Braxton better. Are they related?
I don't know. Maybe. She could become Sheila Braxton. We don't know.
Well, then from now on, let's just call her Sheila.
No, it's not call her that. That's not her name.
Well, it is.
I wouldn't have brought up her name if I knew you were going to change her name.
Well, somebody should have before I had to.
That may not be her real name. WWE may own that name.
Well, then I've done you a favor, and they're not going to sue us for copyright because I've renamed her.
You haven't done me a favor. You did Sheila a favor. Or not Sheila, Kayla, or whatever her name is.
See? I'm doing everybody a favor. So they have a two-man booth. It's Patrick, what's his face, and Corey Graves. And I was wondering if Graves shouldn't be the play-by-play guy since he's the one that has a male voice. Did you this guy now, the English guy that he gets to talk more, he was hyperventilating.
That's right. I'm so happy to be here on Smackdown. Randy Orton.
That's what at one point he's Randy Orton. It was like that.
The Viper. He's a Viper.
Lawler was doing better color when he had his heart attack.
You know, Corey Graves wouldn't be bad as a solo. I mean, I know you brought up the perfect group as like a two-person team. And I'm not saying he's the right guy, but sometimes one person, if they have a good voice and they're knowledgeable, is less bullshit because they have to tell the story themselves.
Well, but they need to find.
They're not going to do it. I know they're not going to do it.
They know how to tell the story.
It's better than the
because I don't think
guy.
Corey Graves needs to be Joey Styles in Heyman's fucking friend's basement or whatever.
Oh my God! Who's going to team with Butch? Butch.
And to be honest, I think they ought to have two announcers at ringside call the action and one interviewer to be either in the ring or in the back with, and we don't need to hear nothing for 30 and 45 seconds umpteen times in some of these shows from people just to know that they're standing around in the back. They've relied on that quite a bit. But anyway, nevertheless, here's what they relied on for the open. I wrote one of the things on the opening match, which was the finals of the tournament to determine who gets a shot at the United States title held by Logan Paul. I wrote, I could have picked at this all day, but I just don't have time. Like Thunderbolt Patterson, if I only had time. But this was a fucking mess, and I don't know that it was necessarily mostly Owens' fault. I think the opposite. And a lot of however this was laid out, but they start as they're about to start the match. It's Kevin Owens and Pablo Escobar in the finals of this thing.
Sheila Escobar,
I'm sorry.
Santos Escobar. If this is an isolated clip, no one will get the joke. They'll just think we're making fun of the guy. Santos Escobar. Sheila Escobar is an old...
Oh, Sheila was in the other clip.
That's right.
Well, we don't know. We're just anticipating that.
That's
right. Oh, Sheila, you're in the other clip.
Wow.
All righty.
Wow, where did that come? Okay.
So Logan Paul comes out to the desk for color. And as he sits down, the bell rings, and a bunch of the LWO babyface guys that used to be with Escobar came over the railing and jumped the heel guys that are with Escobar now. I don't know who the fuck these people are. They've got unwieldy names, and they didn't get a goddamn good look at any of them anyway, and they just fought off, right? And then suddenly Owens hit Escobar with a super kick. And Brian, did you, I was fixated. I watched the next 30 seconds 5 times, fixated on Escobar, because I've never seen, I don't know what the fuck. Did you catch what he did?
I'm not sure. Now I'm dying to hear what it was. I'm going to go watch it back. What happened?
Okay. I don't know whether he was just had this memorized and wanted to make sure he didn't fuck up, or he was going through the motions because he was going to do a job, or what the case was. But Owens super kicks Escobar and he sits flat down on his ass in front of the turnbuckles, but out from the turnbuckle. And then he just reaches up and he grabs the ropes and pulls himself into a sitting position, folds his arms in and sits there waiting for Owens to do the cannonball into the turnbuckle. And boom. And then as soon as Owens does that, then Escobar just rolls out like a kid in summer camp rolling over in his sleeping bag, and placed himself perfectly for Owens to climb up to the top in a completely sideways perpendicular position, not a natural bump from this bump. And then he waits for Owens to do the splash off the top rope. 1, 2, and he kicked out. And during that whole thing, the expression on Escobar's face never changed. Super kick, sit on my ass. Up, reaching up, grabbing the ropes now, boss. I'm sitting here, ass in my face. I'm going to roll over, and the big fucker's going to come down on me. Boom. It was
This is why he was a mass wrestler.
If anybody wants to go back and watch this, it was almost like a practice session where, hey, you do these moves, and then in between, nobody's watching. I'll just fucking get into position and then wait for you to. So at that point, now we've had the Stooges fight the other Stooges off, and we've had this super kick, cannonball splash off the top, 1, 2 kick, and Logan Paul doing the colors starts talking. And they went to the fucking break. It was 45 seconds, and Logan Paul is still in the middle of talking. So that's what Kevin Dunn, unfortunately, was probably sitting home going, they can't do a show without me.
Give me another carrot.
Actually, now, wait a minute.
I guess beavers don't really...
Beavers don't know. Beavers would be more... Well, I know some beavers that have liked clams, but it just depends. So they come back from a break. 3.5 minutes later, they're throwing fake punches and weak forearms at each other. And of course, Owen has a broken hand and it's in a cast, so Escobar gets heat on it. And they go through another break after a while. And when they came back from that break, they were up fighting on the same turnbuckle as when they came back from the previous break. And they were on in and around that for a while. And then Owens gave him some kind of big move off the top and got a 2 count. And then Escobar laid there and just looked over at Owens and started having a conversation with him on camera. And they switched in about a second. It was like this guy was either lost or confused or not giving a shit. And so finally, Owens hit him with a pop-up power bomb and gave him one of the worst Stone Cold stunners ever. And part of that may have been because of the way Escobar took it, where he didn't go down to his knees. He certainly didn't fly away like Lenny Kravitz or The Rock might have done. He just bent over and kind of sold his chin for a second and then fucking jumped up and took a flat back bump with his legs in the air. Boom, 1, 2, 3. That was fucking brutal. Just rotten. And I'll give you a chance to comment in a second, but getting to the end of this thing, thankfully, Logan Paul cut a promo on Owens from ringside and knocked Canada to get some heat, which he did. And he did make a good point. It's hard to argue. He said, you're a Canadian. A Canadian can't be the United States champion. It's hard to argue with that now. And then Logan Paul got in the ring, the big heel running his mouth, and Owens took the fucking broken hand in the cast that the heel was working on through this match and just punched Logan Paul one time, and he went down. And they played the music, and that was it. Good day to you, sir. That was like the first 3 fucking segments.
I like the post-match.
This is the company that's winning the war.
I like the post-match. I thought that was all right.
Well, but Why does it take or Owens, whatever name he's using this week to stay ahead of the authorities? Why does it take him sometimes 15, 20 minutes to remember, well, I'm in this match, this guy's kicking my ass, but I can just knock him out with a cast like I do eventually every time, either in a match or in an angle or whatever. He's done that 2 or 3 times now.
Well, he needs recharge time after the match to recharge the punching power. Logan Paul's great.
Hey, he is. That's why I didn't want to see him get knocked out. Just boom, down he goes, and he's put some heat on the fucking guy.
And from everything we see, he's a real life heel. I guess CoffeeZilla's been tearing into him for a while, and he's a perfect wrestling heel.
Yes, and they won't let him get any fucking heat. I would limit the people that fucking give him comeuppance, especially on free television. But nevertheless.
Even if he's going to beat Owens at the Royal Rumble?
Well, you want people to want to see the match. So he can't just be bitch slapped, no pun intended, constantly before the big pay-per-view or premium live event match or Peacock special or whatever the fuck it is. But again, I'm
excited for LWO versus Lucha Suits 2.0.
Yeah, I don't know who those people. Never mind. So anyway, they were in the back then after the break, and Logan Paul's got an ice pack on his face. He's walking down the hallway, and here comes Theory and Waller to check on him. That's the only appearance I think they made that night. And Grimes came in and laughed at him. And they all got in a shoving match, and poor Petey Williams and Sean Daivari had to separate them. And nothing really was said or happened, but there's going to be a match next week with Grimes and
that was Petey Williams.
Somebody.
I didn't realize.
He didn't have hair now. They all lost their hair when they got out of the wrestling business.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was who it was. Well, now that you say that, I can see who it is. I think that if you're going to have Logan Paul as a top heel, U.S. champion, I'm okay with Austin Theory, and they're obviously pushing Waller, with them being with him as his flunkies as opposed to just being out there as loose flunkies getting their ass kicked.
Yeah, at least they'll get some residual heat from him.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of residual heat, or heat in general, the next segment, I was 2/3 of the way through it, maybe 3/4 of the way, maybe almost all the way before I realized, how about you, that Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits aren't supposed to be heels. Did you have the same miscompunction about this whole situation?
I thought they were heels. I think they were heels.
But how can they be heels when goddamn a group of 5 people comes out and attacks them and beats the shit out of them?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think they were heels. I think at a minimum they were ambiguous. You want to talk about something you rewound and watched several times?
Wait a
Bobby
minute.
Lashley.
I know Bobby Lashley's a married man. I know him personally. He's not
sexually.
Now the other two,
in terms of wrestling friendships, I guess right now that's how you look at it. But I watched that Bobby Lashley getting dropped on his head thing over and over again here.
Oh, let's tell the people what happened from the start so they'll share in our confusion. Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits come out, and they are dressed in the suits, and they've got the jewelry, and Lashley is dressed. Remember, they were dressing in athletic gear, and Bobby dressed him up, and he's took him under his wing, blah, blah, blah. It's a story that they've been telling. And even though Bobby's strength, as we mentioned, is not the promo, he was out there, and their resolution for the new year is to take everything they deserve in 2024. And then the Prophet said some things, and I don't know what they were fucking talking about. And then Bobby declared that he was in the Rumble, but the whole time I'm thinking, okay, he's reformed, in effect, Hurt Business 2.0, same kind of flavor with the suits and they're going to take over. It's a group, but they're obviously heels. They're dressing that way. They're acting this way. They're talking this way. And then suddenly, here's Scarlett and Karrion Kross on a screen, And then they come out of the entranceway. Scarlett's got brown hair now. I'm not sure that was a positive step in the right direction. And then out from behind them comes Paul Ellering. They're in the entranceway, but then suddenly these two fat fucks jump in a goddamn ring behind the Lashley and the Street Profits. And the announcers have, oh my God, they have to immediately identify them because everybody's like, hmm? Like when your dog can't figure out why you've changed his brand of dog food. Hmm? And the announcers, that's AOP, Razor and Akin. And they jumped so I wrote, wait, Lashley's guys are the baby faces. And one of the AOP, because even though they gave both their names, I don't know which is which, and they were all moving around the ring. One of them over and over got on top of one of the Street Profits and fake punched the vicinity of his head. And then Karrion Kross jumped in and joined it. And they double powerbombed the Street Profits. And then, as you mentioned earlier, Karrion Kross gave some kind of modified. At first, I thought was going to be a power slam, and then it turned into some fucked up F5 and dropped him headfirst on the goddamn mat. I mean, if Lashley was a normal human, it might have hurt him or killed him. But since he's a mutant freak, I guess he's okay. We haven't heard anything. But it wasn't because the guy didn't try. I feel bad for Bobby Lashley and poor Paul Ellering. And somebody said on Twitter, Paul Ellering is 70 years old. And he's out there looking at this fucking shit. How did they get him involved in this?
Well, you remember the last time Akam and Razor were in WWE, because they were released. I don't know what the exact term was. They were one of the many people released either right before the pandemic or during the pandemic or after the pandemic. He was their manager. And it was a weird thing because, all due respect to Paul Ellering, and obviously did a lot for the Road Warriors business-wise, and he could do a good promo, he wasn't exactly like, oh, that was the greatest manager. I hope he comes back and gets another run. So it was weird when all of a sudden Paul Ellering's managing these two guys, and then they were gone. In the meantime, Kross and Scarlett...
Well, and let me be fair to Paul. He, for almost the entirety of the Road Warriors run, he was a babyface manager. So he had to be somewhat less flavorful than us heels because it didn't work the other way. It would have been a hat on a hat to be a fucking nut with the Road Warriors.
Part of the problem, too, is his promo works better when he looks crazy, not when he just looks like a guy who's like, I'll come in for the taping. That doesn't really work.
Well, I felt bad for it because at least he's a star. At least he's a star.
Well, what'd you think? Scarlett, new hairdo? And
Lashley. No, not that. No, she needs to get the bottle of peroxide back.
And Karrion Kross, new hairdo.
The fact that he has hair at all was his downfall.
Will they get MVP to counteract Paul Ellering?
Well, no, let me just say this, that with Karrion Kross, I'm officially saying at this point, there ain't going to be no LA Knight comeback story here. We might as well call the time of death on the Karrion Kross experiment, which sounds like a 70s sci-fi movie, because he's done now. We've seen what the fuck. It ain't going to happen. If Scarlett wants to be a star in wrestling, it's going to be with somebody else, and she ought to have blonde hair. Because, they're making everybody at AEW dresses in black. Everybody in WWE wants to fucking either have black hair or wear black. It seems like, my God, they're taking all of the color out of everybody. And then the AOP are two big fucking guys of what was that? Oh, the tag team that I'm thinking about. The two fat brothers.
The Headhunters?
Well, not them, but there was an indie team.
The Undertakers, Double Trouble?
Yeah, there you go. They were Italian back in the Northeast.
I think Val Puccio was one of them.
it looked the same. There's two fat guys trying to be tough, and we didn't know who they were, and there was no goddamn reason for us to care when they're beating up people and we thought they were heels to begin with. And then their shit looks horrible. The one guy just was on top of of whoever the prophet was. I couldn't see. He was covered up and the other guy's fat. And just swinging his fist in the neighborhood of the guy's head. And what the fuck? Anyway, I feel bad for Bobby Lashley and Paul Ellering. One a star of the past, the other a star of the present, who might not be a star of the future if he don't get out of this business.
What about bringing back MVP? Put him with Lashley again. You got to have Almost there as their backup. And now you got Ellering and MVP to do promos.
You had me sold until you mentioned Almost.
Well, I haven't heard that he's released, so I figure he has to come along.
Maybe he escaped.
Maybe he escaped.
All right, let's move along. They had a long girls segment. A lot of girls in that segment. And apparently it went even longer than it was planned because at 9 p.m. Eastern, the top of the hour, I'm pretty sure we're supposed to see Paul Heyman on the screen doing the masterful promo about The Rock, but instead it was at 9:02 because the girls went 2 minutes over. So this was not a good start technically. I mean, I know they're going to have some hiccups, but they didn't fire the whole fucking crew. They just let Kevin exit gracefully stage left, right? It's still the same people. They couldn't turn the interviewer's mic on. They fucking flummoxed the goddamn going to break in the first segment, and now they've got girls pulling each other's hair at 9 o'clock instead of Heyman talking about The Rock. It's not a fortunate night for him, was it?
No. And that's this week on Bitch Slap.
But anyway, so Heyman was in the back and he was commenting on The Rock's comments when he commented on Roman Reigns by indirectly commenting on the head of the table. And he said The Rock wants to sit at the head of the table, but he hasn't been invited and he ain't gonna be. Because he's just looking for a shortcut to the headlines. And Paul, again, he's a master. And he named all the major stars that have interacted with Roman Reigns, that Roman Reigns has beaten. And it also served the double purpose to illustrate how many fucking big stars they have right now on this program. And I wrote that they've spent a lot of time talking about The Rock not to have some plans. I don't know if they've got anything on, paper and notarized, but they wouldn't have gone this far without some plans. But Paul named Cena and Brock and Rock and Punk and Cody and Orton and Styles and LA Knight. And then he still at the same time put Roman over strong. Great promo. With Paul just standing in front of a blue background, because why not? You listen to him. It doesn't need to be dressed up. I don't know. Am I praising the wise man too much? Because I will remind everybody physically compared to me, who is older than him.
Here we go. There it is.
That he looks like a troll floating under a bridge, but he's a brilliant
you can't help yourself.
Promo artist.
We were seconds away from you, as always, complimenting the fine work of Paul Heyman for once without insulting him, and there you go, right at the very end.
I did not insult him.
He was like a troll under the bridge?
No, I was making an accurate assessment. It's not an insult if you're making what appears to be an even-handed assessment of the situation, and I praised his abilities on this promo.
If you look like a dead troll under a bridge, even if that is a literal statement, even if that is a point of fact, do you think you want to be told that?
Well, go find a dead troll under a bridge and ask him, smarty pants.
I wasn't at Smackdown this week.
Anyway, but following the Heyman promo, we went back to La La Land because they immediately hit Purely Dreary's music. And I invoked the Purely Dreary rule and did not watch this, although they wrestled Butch. And Butch's mystery partner was Tyler Bate, but I'm not also into either Mr. Butch or Master Bate. And
Tyler Bate! Butch! That's...
Now, wait a minute,
so
wait a
bad.
minute.
That guy sucks so fucking
That was, I thought that was audio that was recorded at the hotel that night.
No, that was the production meeting beforehand. Tell me what's on the format. Oh, Butch! Oh!
He needs an oxygen tank at ringside, doesn't he?
This isn't his thing. Make him the interviewer and put Caleb Braxton on commentary. Do something.
And he could be the interviewer that the heels make fun of and bully because he's such a nerd.
He could be the Sheila.
There you go. Sheila Patrick.
His name's Patrick?
I think, isn't it?
I thought it was Kieran or something.
No, it's Kevin. It's Kevin Patrick. But
sure?
It's Sheila.
Oh, Sheila.
Oh, Sheila, your name used to be Kevin, but now it's not. Oh, Sheila. So Nick Aldis was in the back with Ashante Adonis. And I don't know where they're going with this, but it was almost like we were listening to one of the AEW roster where, he's saying to Aldis, I've been struggling. I feel lost. I don't know what my place is. Don't feel sorry for me. I just need an opportunity. These are professional athletes, and they're in the boss's office begging, and it's their dream to have been there. But Aldis looks at him with being unmoved emotionally because he's the stern type. And he says, don't worry, I've got ideas for you. So he's got ideas for the humble but lovable Ashante Adonis. What do you think those ideas are?
It's not my fault they booked me with Top Dollar. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I just showed up. I was just there.
I've served my penance.
I like Aldis a lot. I mean, at the end of the show, too, just the way he carries himself as he does these things. He's not one of these feckless general managers, and he's not too over the top with it. You still are wondering what his motivations are. He's become one of my favorite characters on this show.
I will agree that he has done a good job with he's done a good job with everything that they have given him and that he has done. I think they made a mistake at the end of this fucking program. I'll tell you why. We're putting him in that particular position.
Huh.
But allow me to explain as we get there, because what we got left is the main event in this SmackDown program. And they're more economical than they are with the time on Raw, because they started the entrances for the triple threat match to meet Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble at 9:30 Eastern. And by 9:38, they were back from a break and the match was already underway. And it was LA Knight and Randy Orton and AJ Styles. And you will recall when last we left our space travelers, AJ had turned on or just, fucking been inhospitable to Orton, it was, correct? And
well, AJ punched LA Knight.
That's right. He spun LA Knight around and punched him. And then he shouldered past Orton, and he's got it. So they're not all just humble and lovable with each other here. There's some tension, is how they set it up. But still, you've got nominally two baby faces, LA Knight and Randy Orton, and one who was until he just sucker punched the other guy last week or whenever the fuck it was. Right?
Right.
So I hate having to watch these things because they, unfortunately, even with good talent, they're all the same. Two guys are going to fight while one disappears for some specious reason that you wouldn't sell whatever that long, or just for no reason at all. And they do moves to each other back and forth until they're done, and then they do an angle or a finish in the case of AEW, which hadn't figured out how to do angles yet. And this was just a higher level version of it because all these guys are over and they're all professionals. But you could tell that, when LA Knight did the heads to the desk on both Orton and AJ, the fans like it better on AJ because they like Orton. They don't want to cheer him overwhelmingly getting his fucking face bashed into something. which is why I hate it when there's two baby faces in one of these things, because you invariably split the crowd or diminish a reaction. And then Orton did the thing where he just picks a guy up and just drops him back first on the desk. He did it to LA Knight and to AJ, and then LA Knight again. And there's poor Charles Robinson just standing there watching, not counting, because it's a three-way. It's no DQ, lazy booking. And Brian, you'll recall at the original three-ways, the triple threat matches, it wasn't no disqualification, because that's a hat on a hat. There was no need to have that. You already had a stipulation. But now it's evolved into, you can't be counted out, you can't be disqualified. Anybody can help you. I guess can we get some assistance from the crowd? Is there a Mark that would like to come in and help us out, right? So they go back and forth in this fashion, right? And again, I zoned out. They had lots more on the floor. Everybody can work. They're doing shit to each other. We made that point. And then finally, AJ does a 450 springboard. Is that a 360 or 4? He did the springboard from the apron and then stood on the rope and then did a complete somersault and landed with a splash on poor LA Knight. How many degrees is that? Is that the 360 or the 450? I think it's a 450.
It's the 420.
Well, maybe he was 420 before he did the 450, because he landed on LA Knight's face and busted him wide open. Wide smacking open. And if you go back and watch, LA sees as... I can't imagine what that looks like when some stupid motherfucker is standing on the top rope and doing a goddamn cannonball in the air and then coming with a splash, because I've never experienced that, because they didn't do that when I had an occasion to wrestle. But if you go back and look at this, Brian, when AJ jumps and he's coming fast in that flip, and he's coming from a good height, it looks like as he's coming down, LA looks like, this may not be coming out even, and he tries to kind of turn a little bit to the right to take, his face away from the fucking scene of the crime there. And boom, AJ with an elbow apparently landed and gashed LA Knight's fucking forehead. And boom, as soon as LA Knight turns over and it kicks out, or whatever the fuck, you can see the trickle start, and it kept going, and the announcers never mentioned the word blood. So this is something they hopefully need to get clarification on from their UFC brethren. That don't the UFC announcers, when a guy gets busted open for real, say, well, that guy just got busted open.
Yeah, they say exactly that. That's right.
Yeah, so I can understand them not wanting to use the blade on the entertainment program or whatever, but you got to be able to say the word fucking blood. Good God. Anyway, so then Orton comes back in and LA Knight disappears, probably happy that he's able to do that. And AJ springboards toward Orton, but Orton gives him the RKO and cover 1, 2, and LA Knight pulls the referee to the floor. And he pulled him to the floor, and that's the last we're going to see out of him for several minutes, because he was pulled to the floor. He immediately, I guess, went into cardiac arrest, because now all three guys were down, and the English announcer needed CPR. He sounded like he was goddamn on his last legs. And they play Roman Reigns' music, and out comes Roman and Solo and Jimmy and Paul. And while all of this stuff is happening that I'm about to tell you about, the announcers are bemoaning that, well, there's nothing that can be done. It's no disqualification. Still, again, couldn't there be a pretext that while the referee is down, we're going to interfere and do some mayhem or whatever? They played music on the run-in while the referee was down. He'd have had to not only been knocked out, he'd have had to been knocked deaf. right?
Well, you never
I
think
can
about that.
understand him being
Yeah.
face down on the other side of the ring. He didn't see what happened. No, we're going to play the goddamn guy's music on a loudspeaker.
If the referee just hears the oohs and ahs of the crowd, it could be anything. But if it's literally the guy's entrance music, you have to
Yes,
assume.
there's a clue. It's a clue, Smithers, right? But then if you establish that foiled somebody, then one of the other heels could play the babyface's entrance music. And so, nevertheless, so here comes the bloodline. And Roman sends Solo in, and he fights LA Knight. And Roman and Jimmy get on Orton, and they get heat on the baby faces, and Solo hits Orton with the stairs. And again, they're taking their time. They're taking their time. They're not like they're perpetrating a crime. They're just doing whatever they want. There's no referee. Nobody's ringing a bell. But as we come to find out later on, a match apparently was over. Nobody's coming out to help, whether it be security, other referees, whatever. Roman Reigns powerbombs AJ and shit cans him, gives the Superman punch to LA Knight, and then spears him. And then the heels roll Orton in. Now the referee's up by now, just standing around watching. And the thing that we were going to comment on, Nick Aldis has been there watching the match all along, but he's still there. And in Roman Reigns spears Randy Orton. And then Aldis, ringside with Paul, says, I need to speak to you. And he's not, Aldis he's the goddamn epitome of the cool British secret agent type, right? He's not sweating. Nothing is out of place. There's not a wrinkle on his custom-made suit. But he tells Paul, not even on the microphone, just so the camera can pick it up, tell your man Roman Reigns that he's earned a 4-way match for the title at the Royal Rumble with all 3 of these guys. My disdain for 4-ways will be expressed in a second. Here's what I didn't like what I was telling you about. Yes, Aldis is you don't know what his motives are, and he's a very gruff person, and he's neither a babyface or a heel. You can tell he's out for himself. He's a corporate ladder climber. He wants to be a big deal around there. He's not like Adam Pearce that is there for the love of the game and wants to support the athletes. Aldis, you can tell, is a goddamn Republican, right? He's out for himself. But at the same time, he's brand new. It's just started a month or whatever ago. To have him stand out there as the authority figure of the program and the general manager and the guy that's in charge of this TV show and wants to make money with it, and do absolutely nothing while this gang of thugs completely destroys 3 of his top name stars? Imagine if it was Dana White. There would be some chaos going on. I'm not saying don't let the heels get heat in front of him. I'm saying don't have him standing out there watching the whole thing and put up with it and then tell Paul that he's bought himself a 4-way. If the referee goes down, run the heels down. Let them get some urgent heat on these baby faces. Roman Reigns is trying to take every single challenger he's got out at the same time. And the bloodline's on him, and there comes Aldis with the goddamn security and the referees, and he's mad. He doesn't have to be a raving lunatic, but he's not fucking happy about this because there's 3 of his goddamn meal tickets. Do you see what I'm saying here?
I do.
It puts more urgency on the whole thing. And then when he makes the 4-way, he makes it out of contempt for what Roman Reigns tried to do, which doesn't make him a babyface or a heel. It still fits in with him wanting this show to be the best show because it makes him look good. But it also sets up tension with him and the bloodline of his real nature rather than, well, tell your man he's just bought himself a 4-way and Paul do the shock face.
See, I agree with you, but I actually am intrigued by the dispassionate way he handles these situations. He didn't panic. He didn't yell. He didn't say, if we lose these 3 guys, my show's fucked. None of that.
I'm not saying he needs to panic and go fucking throw his fucking body over the top of one of them, but he needs to be more upset. I agree with you. He should be a dispassionate, cool British fucking fellow, except when his 3 top stars are getting assassinated, he needs to fire up a little bit, I would think. Or don't be put in that position. But that's the thing is the end of the. There was no finish to the match. These guys came out and beat these guys up, and nobody tried to fucking stop them. And there was no urgency, and there was no sense of a crime being committed because even they were like, "Oh fuck." You know, it's all no DQ. It's anything can fucking happen. There needs to be more jeopardy in this type of shit for it to really get people to want to climb over the fucking rail. That's my fucking point, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, more jeopardy, and he didn't even sing Greg Kinn. So we won out this week.
Aldis on Jeopardy, baby.
Aldis on Jeopardy?
Whoa. I'd like to see Nick Aldis on Jeopardy. See if he can answer any of those questions.
All right, well, there's a plane going over my head.
Maybe it's the same one. Has there been enough time?
What are these leaflets? Well, that was SmackDown. And boy, was it.